Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on SABC News. The Freedom Month celebrations offer South Africans an opportunity to reflect on progress made thus far in transforming society while also examining challenges. Although the country has made remarkable progress since 1994, the specter of inequality, poverty and unemployment remains one of the most glaring impediments to South Africa's goal of national unity and social cohesion. Well, as we build up to National Freedom Day celebrations on the 27th of April, we look at what this month means for the LGBTIQ community in South Africa. Joining us to talk more on this issue is Regional Advocacy Officer at Gender Dynamix, Dzoe Ahmed. A warm welcome to you here on SABC News. Thanks very much for joining us, Dzoe.
Hey, good evening. Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome. You know, we have this discussion, ironically, today on the back of the Ugandan lawmakers attempting to sort of legalize homophobia, if one can put it that way. Before we talk about, Freedom Month in this country, in South Africa, let's broaden our discussion a little bit and talk about the lack of progress seen by some communities generally in the continent.
Thank you so much. So I love the fact that you touch base around Ugandan experience around anti-homosexual bill that is being passed just to erase the footprint or the visibility of one's identity. We should be looking around, whenever we're looking around freedom, what does that mean whenever black people or indigenous people are excluded when it comes to policies? And so looking around the regional context, I think we've seen several momentums or several issues that have been happening across globe around anti-LGBTI movement rising. For instance, starting with early this year, Zambia experienced massive around anti-LGBTI exclusionary or anti-LGBTI bullying in Zambia. Then further strengthened by Ugandan, which was groundbreaking. And then now we're looking around some of the cases in Angola. So it's issues around how then do we, as Africa, how then can we have laws and policies that speaks to us as indigenous and black people in the continent? How then do we have countries that hold us in terms of one's visibility, as well as embrace our diversity within different societies where we exist.
Yeah, you talk about positives, and perhaps we can maybe then take the time to perhaps look at some of the milestones. If we're looking back 29 years into our democracy here in South Africa, what milestones can you say highlight the gains that have possibly been made for the LGBTIQ community in South Africa?
So maybe I will just focus around trans, as it's my areas of expertise around trans and gender diverse population, looking around the education system, working towards inclusive policies or inclusive higher education. However, we still see a big gap around the implementation of those policies or the implementation of education system. And then further strengthening around gender affirming healthcare within public and private sector. What is the discourse or what is the gap around the implementation of ICT 12 just being into account or being implemented in the country, just drawing from international policies as well, trying to localize it in a more contextual, in a more South African context, in order for people to have access to services, in order for people to have shelter. We're looking around climate change. What has been that impact the life of society in South Africa, looking at the number of and the ratios of people who are living in streets in Western Cape, for example. What does that mean whenever we're speaking around freedom and democracy? What does it mean whenever we're looking around social and economical freedom and liberation for indigenous people in the country? And then looking around employment, this is looking around social security as well as economic growth. The numbers are still increasing around unemployment in the country. However, I think South Africa has been the best practice in terms of having laws and policies that they look good on the paper, but when it comes to the implementation for the people on the ground, they do not fit the context.
And in fact, that's actually where I wanted to go, because, we're often, applauded about having, the best pieces of legislation. We're told we have the best constitution in the world. So yes, the laws may be progressive, but on the ground, it doesn't necessarily translate. And maybe, you can talk to us about how, the general public, embraces the LGBTIQ plus community. It seems as though, things have changed over the years, but, would you say that, it is enough?
Indeed. I think our policies, they look wonderful on the paper. However, the interpretation is based on one's experiences. Remember, we're coming from a broader, diverse background where some of the people who are sitting, for instance, in high position to make decisions, they might not be an understanding around LGBTI issues, or maybe not be in a form of acceptance around one's identity or visibility. So, for instance, looking around legal gender recognition in the country, in Western Cape, you can easily access the services if you're a transgender person to change your gender marker document. However, it's hard to access the services in Polokwane, for example. So you see around the geographical gap and the geographical knowledge and background that still sit with us as South Africans or as people in the country, that leaves certain people at a disadvantage and leaves certain people in an advantage in terms of accessibility. So whenever I speak around accessibility, I broke it down to say the geographical context, what is easily accessible, what is easily understood, what is easily acceptable within that society. So I think access in the country in general, it's based on one, access to economical, financial wealth, or it's based on geographical location, where for instance, Western Cape is more advanced, it's got more advanced laws compared to Polokwane or to Free State. So this intergap around the country leaves certain people in disadvantage in terms of accessibility and enjoying the freedom that we as countries saying whenever we're speaking about freedom, what does that mean and how does one can interpret freedom, because freedom is embodied based on one's experience.
All right, Dzoe, a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for being with us this evening. Dzoe Ahmed is the Regional Advocacy Officer at Gender Dynamix, talking to us, of course, as we look forward to Freedom Month celebrations, and certainly talking about what the month means for the LGBTIQ plus community.